Well, welcome back. I'm Nancy Tefera-Santos, Senior Vice President, eMarketer at Insider Intelligence. I hope you're enjoying our Attention Summit. We've heard about TV growth projections and strategies, and now we're going to lean into why CTV has brands rethinking their customer journeys. We want this to be educational, so as always, participate. Send in your questions, and I'll get to as many as I can during the Q&A. Now I want to introduce my very special guest. I have with me again today, Ali Haeri, VP of Marketing at Mountain. Ali, welcome back.
Thank you so much for having me back, Nancy. I appreciate it. And thank you to the eMarketer audience. We really, at Mountain, we're users of eMarketer. We certainly utilize all of the research ourselves, but this is a great opportunity for us to kind of tap into a lot of the research and insights that we collect as a CTV platform, and really looking to just kind of educate the audience today. This isn't a sort of pitchy webinar. This is just meant to be relaying a lot of research and insights that we've kind of collected over observing a lot of advertisers on our platform. And I think we got a really interesting story to tell for you folks today. Digging in, this is me. Just the only aspect of my background that I think is kind of relevant for the audience is the fact that I'm a marketer like you all. I lead a marketing organization, but like a lot of you, no matter what your seniority is, I'm constantly thinking about differentiation and trying to think about ways that we can increase, lead flow, increase demand for the business, while also differentiating. And I think that what we'll talk about today really kind of hones in on precisely that. And so getting right into it, the takeaway today is really connected television. You've heard a lot about it. You probably know a lot about it. Maybe some of you are actually running campaigns in the channel right now. But what I specifically want to talk about today is how you can start rethinking your understanding of the customer journey now that you have a channel like connected TV available to you. It really kind of transforms the customer journey, and pretty conveniently, and we'll go through this step by step, whether you're talking about top of the funnel, mid funnel, low funnel, there's a tactic and a strategy with connected TV that corresponds with every aspect of the funnel. And so we're going to talk about that precisely today. And so more specifically, we'll first talk about just generally what the expectations of customers are these days as they're interacting with brands and going about their journey, and have a provocative statement that I kind of want to make during that section as well. And then we'll get into connected TV. We'll get a sense of what connected TV is precisely doing that's actually influencing and changing our understanding of the customer journey. And then best practices. We have data research that I'm really excited to share in the same vein as the sort of thing that you normally get from eMarketer, that really will help shape your understanding of how to deploy connected TV against these different stages of the customer journey. And then finally, some pointers in terms of how to identify the best CTV platform based off of what your wants and needs are as advertisers. So the priority here is to kind of give you a really informative webinar that leans on a lot of insights that we have. And this isn't going to be academic. This is actually going to be rooted in a lot of data that we've collected and observed ourselves. And then at the end, we'll take some questions. Now, starting in the beginning, television has totally been disrupted by CTV. I think a lot of people intuitively know that. I suspect everybody who's tuning in here today is streaming television themselves. And probably everyone in your lives are too. It's been seismic, the movement that we've seen towards streaming television. We actually hit a watershed moment last year. Around mid last year, we saw in a Nielsen report that streaming television finally outnumbered the consumption of regular broadcast TV viewing. So it was a huge moment that we've noticed in television. And again, I think everyone intuitively feels like everyone's kind of moved towards streaming. But again, that was a tremendous milestone that we kind of passed just generally in terms of TV as a medium. And the probably the most interesting thing and the most relevant thing with regards to this movement towards connected television for the marketers who are tuned in here today is the fact that with that movement, we've now had people migrate over to a method of television watching that is a lot more conducive to performance marketing. And we'll talk about this plenty over the course of this presentation in terms of what exactly is performant about connected television, especially compared to legacy linear TV capabilities. Now, stepping away from TV for just a moment and just kind of talking about the consumer, the customer journey is more important than ever. I'd say that because customers now have so much available to them in the way of the devices that they use. Their devices are always connected. They crisscross between a variety of devices inside a household. They're on the go. And so, if you compare what life is like as an advertiser trying to influence the customer journey in 2023 compared to, say, 1923, this is a different ballgame. You're talking about users that are sort of, their attention is incredibly finite, and you're competing with all sorts of things, not just other advertisements, but just all sorts of other things to really captivate that user and interest them in whatever it is that your messaging actually is. Now, some surveying that we've seen related to customers and their perception of the customer journey shows some really interesting insights. One is that 73% say a good experience influences their brand loyalty. And one thing to consider is that the experience that someone has with a brand doesn't start as soon as they start using the product. It starts at their very first exposure to a brand, which oftentimes is by way of some sort of advertisement. So that's a really important insight to consider. Another one, 80% are likely to engage with a brand that personalizes its experiences. This has been one of the benefits that we've seen with the proliferation of programmatic advertising and being able to tailor advertising to users and their interests and affinities. And again, TV, just to tease it a little bit, is poised to really play into that sensibility quite nicely. Finally, 2/3 are willing to share information in exchange for some kind of value. Just this morning, I was reading about Telly. Telly is this new television that's given out for free. It's a 55-inch 4K HDR television with a sound bar and a second screen dedicated to advertising. It's given away for free, and it's doing tremendously well already. And maybe not so surprising. Users are finding some sort of value in that sort of exchange between being a captive audience for advertising in exchange for something incredibly valuable like a television. So none of these statistics, I suspect, are necessarily surprising for everybody here. But again, it's good to sort of set the table as we think about the customer journey. Now, coming back to connected TV and kind of tying these 2 points together, we just talked about CTV viewership, and we talked about the customer journey. Let's kind of tie that together for just a moment. The movement towards streaming television, again, has kind of situated CTV advertisers in a really nice place. Because one, they can really insert their brand's messaging at any point in the customer's journey, and we'll get into that precisely later on in this presentation, what that actually means and what that actually looks like. Also, creative can be customized to the user in a way that never existed before. You really don't have customized creative in the realm of linear TV advertising because the targeting is so inherently broad. It's hard to really, tailor your advertising messaging beyond, considerations of the TV network and the TV show in which the ad is running. But in this case, it's programmatic. You are targeting your creative to the precise people who are actually seeing the ad. And finally, keeping a conversation going as someone progresses through the funnel is also really interesting. This is something that we do on other ad channels. We align different ad channels with different stages of the funnel and try to move people along with different advertising tactics and content as someone progresses through the funnel. Same thing can be done with connected TV as well. Now, the really provocative statement that I wanted to make here is the fact that we feel like the age of the customer journey, just the singular customer journey, is over. And instead, we're proposing that you think of it as the customer brand journey. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, really, the point here is that brands now can walk alongside customers throughout the whole customer journey. It's not now that it's not how it was before, where a customer just has a couple of sort of specific touch points throughout the journey. Now it's multifaceted, and brands are able to sort of, again, walk alongside a customer in every stage. Again, from the awareness stage, which I think is probably the way that most people think of TV advertising traditionally, is that they think of it as like an awareness stage, top funnel advertising medium. But now you could kind of continue that messaging, as we were just kind of talking about a moment ago. No matter what stage someone actually is in, the creative and the advertising and the audience targeting can really sort of follow along with that user across the customer journey and create some really, special experiences, but also from a performance marketing standpoint, a high propensity for getting site visits and conversions, which is fundamentally something that is of importance to performance marketers. Now, specifically, what is it about CTV? What is it about the profile of CTV that is making it more ad friendly than ever? Well, as we talked about, streaming itself is more popular than ever. And again, you're likely streaming TV, and so are your family and friends. Also, you're just seeing that movement on the publisher side as well. Publishers recognize that people are cutting the cord. That's why we've seen a ton of consolidation across a lot of different publishers, and we're likely to see a lot more of it. Top of mind for me is the launch of Max, as we've seen HBO and Discovery do a mega merger, creating a treasure trove of content. And we're just going to keep seeing more consolidation. What's also interesting from this publisher standpoint too is that even individual networks, are considering cord cutting. Lately, the biggest news is the deliberations at ESPN, Disney property, over maybe abandoning the traditional cable model entirely and going fully OTT, which is fascinating. Another thing that we've sort of observed is that now every major streaming subscription service has an ad-supported offering. With Netflix and Disney in this game, everybody's got an ad-supported offering. This is fantastic for advertisers because this is a ton of inventory that has now been opened up for CTV advertising. We're talking about hundreds of millions of users that are using these platforms generally. And a good subset of those users are taking up these streamers on their ad-supported versions. So that's putting us in a pretty nice position from an inventory standpoint. And so fundamentally, where this leaves us is that there's a lot of people watching ad-supported television, which again kind of sets up the opportunity really nicely for advertisers. And so the last points with regards to TV, but again, this is through the lens of an advertiser. When you're thinking about the audience that you're actually targeting on TV, there's a couple of really key considerations. Really, the most important thing to me when I think about this is the fact that the market is totally fragmented and it's shifting continuously. When I think of the alternative of advertising on linear TV, you're talking about really expensive media buys on individual networks, and you coordinate these media buys on these individual networks to create some sort of media plan that's not just expensive, but it's also, the targeting of it is quite loose. And in the case of CTV, assuming you're using a platform that's doing that, like Mountain, for example, where it's kind of programmatic across a lot of premium inventory, you don't really need to worry about whether your target audience is tuned into a particular network at a particular time. What's happening in this case is your target audience is going to be targeted with your ad no matter what it is that they're watching, when they're watching it, and where they're watching it. As long as they're watching ad-supported television, you don't need to play the guessing game anymore of like, what network does my target audience watch and what show do they watch on that network? I think back to one of the first CTV campaigns that we ran as Mountain, and looking at the sort of the TV network report after we ran the initial campaign, I was fascinated to see that Adult Swim was a really impactful channel where a lot of our audience seemed to be. And if I was doing a linear TV buy as a B2B brand targeting marketing and advertising professionals, Adult Swim would not be the first place that I would think of in terms of doing a direct media buy. But in the case of programmatic, the delivery of the campaign shows you where your audience actually is. And again, it doesn't really matter where you're targeting them as long as you have a target across a wide set of premium inventory. And also just the fact that the nature of these users too, they're consuming content across different publishers, different subscriptions, different devices. I think the cross-device piece is tremendously important here, and it's something that we'll come back to later as we talk about attribution. Now, in terms of tools of the trade, what is it that is going to be, what is it from a technology standpoint that's really going to make these campaigns effective? Well, there's a couple of really key pieces. That last point that I just made is the first one here, which is cross-device, in this case, verified visits, but just generally cross-device measurement. With connected television advertising, what we're talking about is someone crossing the chasm from a television impression to a website visit. Most streaming TV platforms are not facilitating any sort of on TV experience where no one's clicking an ad on a television. The natural behavior is using a second screen to actually access an advertiser's website. And so making sure that you're using a platform that tracks cross-device visits is tremendously important. Especially if you're thinking about connected TV as a performance marketing channel. At Mountain, we call it performance TV because, again, we're dealing with advertisers that are using this as a channel alongside search and social. They speak the language of performance marketing, and therefore they have performance marketing expectations of CTV. And so in this case, again, you're going to want a capability to be able to track those visitors that span across devices. Some other capabilities that are really important: CRM targeting. There's a variety of list-based targeting purposes out there. For B2B advertisers, it may be for an ABM campaign. For e-commerce advertisers, it may be you're doing TV advertising targeting your loyalty program. Whatever it is, having that capability of doing list-based retargeting is tremendously important. And also making sure that you get a good match rate, just as you would expect out of any other performance marketing platform. Then talking about audiences, affinity-based targeting. This is something that social media marketers are totally expect out of any platform that they use, which is being able to use affinity or in-market audiences to target people who are precisely in that window of time where they're in consideration of whatever it is that your product or service may be. That's important, and those audiences can be found on connected television as well. And finally, retargeting. You can retarget the same way you think about retargeting mechanically as a digital marketer. That same sensibility carries over to connected TV. In fact, we do that. If you visit Mountain's website and then you stream ad-supported TV after that website visit, you're very likely to see Mountain ads on your television because we're retargeting site visitors in the same manner that we would with any other digital channel. And to that point about retargeting, I think this is a really important one. There's a lot of people who are just still realizing that you can do retargeting with connected television. So for starters, it's just important to understand that, yes, it is certainly possible. But taking it a step further, again, you could retarget with the same capabilities that you would, again, with digital channels. And what I mean here is you could segment your site-based retargeting. For example, you can retarget cart abandoners. You can retarget based off of session depth. You can retarget based off of the value of the products that someone is viewing on an e-commerce store. If you want to retarget people who are viewing expensive products versus inexpensive products on an e-commerce store, you can retarget that way. And so, assuming you've done a lot of site-based retargeting in the past, a lot of those same parameters and capabilities for creating those different retargeting lists carries over to connected TV, certainly on a platform like Mountain's. And I don't really need to explain the impact and value of retargeting. I think a lot of people intuitively understand it. Well, I think the most important kind of consideration with deploying retargeting campaigns is always that these are the most performant campaigns. They're constrained to an audience that already has exposure to your brand. As such, these are the most performant campaigns that we typically have. Now, a question that we get a lot of times is, when do you actually run retargeting? And we see a lot of advertisers that kind of show up to Mountain just eager to get going with prospecting, and they kind of say, yeah, retargeting sounds good, I do it, I'll get to it later. We just really want to get these prospecting campaigns up and running as quickly as possible. First big best practice, and I want to show the data that backs this up that I want to share with everybody, is you got to do both at the same time. You got to deploy both of those campaigns immediately. And one kind of consideration before I get into the data is, if it hasn't been obvious already, in the case of Mountain, this is a performance marketing platform. We're talking about a pixel that goes on your website, just as any other performance marketing platform has pixels on your website and a conversion pixel on your website. And these things really get put to work in the case of a retargeting campaign. Now, here's some research that we recently conducted on our platform to really kind of understand the impact of the timing of deploying retargeting in a advertiser's journey. And so the thing that we noticed was that advertisers that launched with retargeting, they launched their campaigns, their prospecting campaigns with retargeting campaigns simultaneously, saw stronger visit rates to their website. Maybe not so surprising, but the data absolutely shows a disparity between the advertisers who did and who didn't. And the key metrics here: 27% more site traffic in 90 days. 90 days is important. This is another sort of best practice and consideration. Is what we've observed is, from a performance standpoint, a campaign really hits its stride at 90 days. And we have a lot of analysis that we've done that shows us that that's when the sort of media buying technology really hits its stride in terms of hitting peak ROAS for advertisers. And so 27% more site traffic after 90 days, two times more ROAS performance after 90 days. So the impact of retargeting from the outset of a campaign is tremendously important. So certainly keep that in mind. And similarly to that point of when to actually deploy retargeting, if you delay the retargeting, you're certainly going to miss out on opportunities. Advertisers, again, who launched retargeting immediately had 17% higher visit rates and 27% higher visit rates after 90 days. And so just it compounds after time. And really, there's no good reason to kind of wait on deploying the retargeting campaigns. Also, considering the fact that you're probably you certainly are doing advertising on other channels, driving a lot of traffic to your website, that's only building up the retargeting pools for television as well. So there's a lot of performance to be had by deploying retargeting. Now, back to this broader concept of the customer journey. Really, as we do with other platforms and tactics, we like to align what we do with different stages of the customer journey. Starting with the top of the funnel, again, this is probably the most familiar kind of correlation. A lot of people think of TV advertising as a top funnel tactic, and certainly makes sense here. It can certainly be treated as such here. Some considerations on this side is, one is the audiences that you actually choose to target here. One thing that's been interesting for us as we've been advertising on connected TV that I think is interesting, that could be interesting for others, is how the audience targeting is influencing the creative that we create. And what I mean by that is, again, in the case of linear TV advertising, a lot of advertisers, because it's such a big and broad media buy, their creative as such is pretty broad in messaging and appeal. But in the case of connected TV, the audiences are so granular and so targeted that it's influenced the creative that we create. And so a lot of people sort of noticed that last year we acquired Ryan Reynolds' creative agency, Maximum Effort. And Ryan is our chief creative officer at Mountain. And the first campaign that we did with Ryan when he joined was a campaign dedicated to marketing and advertising professionals. That's our target audience. And at the beginning of the ad, Ryan is looking straight in the camera, addressing marketing and advertising professionals, saying, if you're seeing this ad, you're likely a marketing and advertising professional. We, as a CTV advertiser, we have that capability. We know that we're precisely talking to our target audience, and so we can speak freely to them. And that unlocks a lot from a creative standpoint. And so even brand marketers who are used to a lot of sort of hazy reporting that they would normally get with linear TV advertising, they're kind of excited from this ability to be able to have this really kind of tight target audience that they could speak to, and it just kind of unlocks a lot of creativity for them. And so we've seen a lot of success with that, and that's really made the top funnel aspect of TV advertising a lot more effective for us. Moving to the middle of the funnel, what's been kind of interesting here is the fact that we've been able to, again, tailor creative to people who already have an awareness of who Mountain is. So we're kind of freed up of having to kind of explain who we are and what we do. And now we can use mid-funnel users to kind of show them different set of creative that kind of goes a little bit deeper in terms of what Mountain is, either showing something like testimonial ads or specific product features. Again, it frees you up creatively to be able to kind of convey whatever message you want without having to, again, be awfully broad with always explaining who you are, what you do, and the vast array of things that you offer, while also trying to be clever and interesting and compelling. And so, CTAs that we see here that work really well are all related to driving somebody back to a website. Again, with a platform like Mountain, in this case, we have a method of tracking cross-device visits. And so we can comfortably tell our advertisers, have CTAs in your ads that encourage them to go to your website. Now, a question I get a lot related to this point is, should I put QR codes in my ads? The answer is, do what you want. If you want, you certainly can do it, but you don't need to do it from an attribution standpoint. You don't need QR codes to understand the impact of your TV ads. Again, cross-device tracking is actually going to do a great job of determining precisely how many visits come from your TV ad. But a QR code could be useful if you're really trying to dictate the customer journey. Some examples that I see is a QR code leads someone to a sign-up flow for a service-based business. So if you want someone off of seeing your TV ad to, if you really want to kind of control where they start their journey on your website, then a QR code can certainly be useful in that case, or if you want to drive them to a specific promotion or offer that you have. But you don't need to do it for the sake of some sort of attribution. Finally, bottom of funnel. This is where CTV gets really exciting because, again, it's a performance marketing channel for a lot of advertisers now. And in this case, again, you can create segmented audiences that meet some sort of criteria that show that they are bottom of funnel. They're deep in consideration. Maybe they already have some sort of relationship with you. Whatever it may be, you can use that audience as the basis of targeting for your campaign, which can also, again, tip these users over the edge. Now, performance TV is a term that I kind of coined earlier, and I just want to kind of revisit this. And again, this is that concept of connected TV being considered a performance marketing channel. At Mountain, we call it performance TV because our bread and butter is performance marketing. That's the language we speak. We're pixels on website. We are real-time reporting. These are all the characteristics of performance marketing channels that you expect with other channels like paid search and paid social. And we sort of speak that same language from a performance marketing side with regards to television. Some research that we've conducted shows 64% of advertisers polled classify CTV as a performance marketing platform. So a lot of performance marketers are already viewing CTV as a performance marketing channel. They already see the inherent benefits and advantages you have when you're serving TV programmatically versus linear broadcast TV advertising. And so the mindset's already there with a lot of advertisers in terms of how they actually think about TV. But the other big consideration here is, and this kind of takes me to that point about what do you need to look for when evaluating platforms to use for connected television. You're going to need platforms that have tools and functionality that are consistent with other performance marketing channels that you use. And here's sort of the checklist, so to speak. Here are the things, the big considerations when you're evaluating CTV platforms. If indeed all of the things that I've kind of mentioned here today are compelling in terms of deploying CTV as a performance marketing channel, these are the capabilities that you're going to really want to look for in these solutions that you're actually evaluating. One is inventory. What is the inventory sources that these platforms are actually using? The overwhelming, probably most obvious thing that we've learned over the course of operating a performance marketing oriented CTV platform is that it's only premium inventory that really converts users. Really obscure CTV apps just don't convert. It really is pretty clear to us that there's just a handful of publishers, likely the ones that you can already think of: Peacock, ABC, ESPN, NBC News, you name it. It's these kinds of publishers that attract a lot of users, and the users that are going to have a high propensity towards site visits and site conversions. You want platforms that allow you to diversify your targeting capabilities between a lot of prospecting audiences to choose from, and also you being able to pixel your website, target site visitors, or do list-based retargeting too. Again, as I mentioned, you likely are sitting on a lot of user data that you want to use as the basis for the targeting of your campaigns. Some other kind of considerations: objective-based advertising. So in the case of Mountain, it's similar to what your experience is like with something like Google or Facebook, where as you're constructing your campaign, you don't need to fiddle around with manual bids. Instead, you're indicating your effective cost per acquisition or your ROAS as a goal, as a target goal. And the platform optimizes against that goal that you've provided. And so, finally, the point I'd make with regards to these channels is you want something that would put you in a position where you can have an evergreen campaign, as you would with, again, these other channels, something that you always have on and you don't turn off. The only thing that you'd really need to do with an evergreen campaign in the case of CTV that may be different from the other performance marketing channels is going to be refreshing your creative with some sort of regularity. You're going to need to swap out creative because ad fatigue is a very real thing. And so just concluding here, just some takeaways. The customer journey is different these days. You really need to think about that customer journey differently than you have traditionally. And again, connected TV can help you play off of that customer journey, differentiate the experience, and also capture the attention of your target prospect in an unorthodox way, especially if you're highly search and social dependent already. This is a way to really kind of cut through the noise. Some other considerations, just again, the CTV has come a long way as a performance marketing channel. So all the points that I made are really features of CTV platforms that you should really be looking for. But with that, that's all I got today, and I guess I'll pull Nancy back in, and maybe we can answer some questions.
Ali, thank you so much. Unfortunately, we ran out of time for questions. Yes, but I have some ideas. We'll see how we can get all these great questions that came in, how we could get your answers over to the audience, because there's a lot of interest. As I expected, incredible education here. Thank you so much, Ali. We really appreciate it and always appreciate working with you and Mountain. Next up in 1 minute at 2:05 Eastern, we have a special closing keynote with our principal analyst, Andrew Lipsman, who will talk about the new digital ad economy. Join Andrew next by clicking on the tab below the video that says next session. Thank you all for joining us, and thank you again, Ali. Bye-bye.